Welcome, it's Deltia from StarfieldGuides.com, and we just got 15 minutes of juicy gameplay trailer for Starfield from Xbox and Bethesda Showcase. I'm here to break it down, give you my opinion on what this could mean for the future of the game. If you don't know, Starfield got pushed back to 2023, so this is the latest and greatest information that we have. The gameplay revealed to us snippets of what the game could be like gunplay with mods and zero-gravity combat, ship building, and customizations along with ship combat, open-world exploration, crafting, nodes, and harvesting, with over 1,000 planets to explore. Also major cities and exploration. And one of my favorite features, and I love from Fallout 4, and that is settlement building on the planets that you explore. More on that later. The question we want answered is, will this be the next Cyberpunk 2077? Super overhyped game with massive bugs, delays, and a messy launch. We'll see. But first up, let's talk about the combat and what that looks like and some of the snippets we got. During the initial intro, they showed off a nice little fight scene while you're exploring, especially the gunplay. What first stuck out to me was the very clean looking UI, and it showed your standard stuff here: ammo, weapons, health, and grenades. But what's really interesting, in the bottom left corner, you see CO2 and O2 meter, showing that planet depending, you could get some interesting mechanics managing these resources going up and down. Think of it like RADs in Fallout 4 or some other previous games. You'll also see a bit of the companion, which is a robot, pretty reminiscent of Fallout series and Fallout 4 specifically. And then we have the scanner. This gives you a lot of detail about surveys and resources, and I'm sure there's going to be a million things to collect and craft. Also in the bottom of the screen, you'll see the temperature and something really cool and interesting, and that's the gravity meter. So the planets could vary wildly, so when you jump, you may take a minute to come down. The first critter we see is your standard enemy mob in an alien planet, but it's neutral unless you engage, and kind of foreshadows the battle ahead. You wind through and get some more of the survey and some more of the environment and harvesting. Expect this to be a core mechanic of the game, as they showed it pretty early and pretty often. Once you're at the facility, you have a big huge pop-up that flashes and it's time to battle. You get some weapons and you go through some swaps. What really stood out to me here is that the weapon itself looked pretty customized. It wasn't just one unique color like you would normally see, but it had the scope, which was a different color. You could even do the muzzle and the barrel and all sorts of stuff. I imagine the gun customization is going to be a core mechanic and really deep in this game. We also get a halo jump, as it's shown earlier, 0.55 gravity. So the jump mechanics has physics related to the planet, which is wild. More exploring in the initial engagement happens and sneaking is commenced, but I didn't notice the typical Fallout or Elder Scrolls mechanics with a little eyeball giving you increased sneak damage. So I'm wondering if there will be builds or perks to amplify damage from sneaking and stealthing. The combat looks very simple, and so does the UI once you start engaging. You have the level of the mob itself, the health bar, and experience popping up when you nuke someone. The combat looks a lot more fluid than Fallout 4, which is good, as the game really isn't that much of a shooter, especially since you can stop time with the VAT system. And this was the biggest problem I had with Fallout 4, was the combat. This looks more like you would expect from a normal shooter in first person. We get a nade throw here, frag out. Moving up the stairs, you get a weapon swap scene that slows down time. I don't think it stops here, but this is kind of interesting, going back to that VATS conversation. If you can use this to cheese mechanics, I'll be a little bit disappointed, or if it just helps the average player swap weapons, great, but I'd like 100% time flowing like you would experience in a normal shooter, something to keep an eye on. Post-battle, we get a lock-picking mechanic and maybe some mini-games to come. You'll see security level, weapon case. The UI appear to be playing on a console with the YXAB buttons. You'll see the standard loot menus here, not that much detail, but the detail inside of the actual building is pretty staggering. We get outside and what appears to be a named boss, and we just nuke him down, clearing it out, and we get a mission update with an inbound vehicle full of baddies. Next up is an awesome jump that kind of goes back and harkens to that gravity. You'll also kind of see the double jump almost effect you would get from Mass Effect Andromeda, so I really like the action-packed gameplay in comparison to the very slow linear gameplay of Fallout. It has some verticality to it. It has some gravity and some mechanics and physics to it that other games just don't have. Overall, the combat scenes were incredible and looks a lot snappier and fluid. It seems like the game spent a lot more time focusing on this aspect and making a real shooter with RPG elements instead of RPG with a shooter element. Along with the jetpacking and world environment effects influencing your jumps, you got O2 and CO2. Really cool exploration and environmental storytelling through these features. In post-combat scene, we get a little bit of storytelling and world design showing off some of the hubs of the planets and towns. We see a watch which looks similar to Fallout, the Pip-Boy unlocking the door may foreshadow a really core feature of something you're going to upgrade on your body. The protagonist is a silent one, which you would expect from typical Bethesda games. The dialogue NPC foreshadows artifacts is what you're seeking and collecting for some reason, the main story element here. The NPC, when you're in the dialogue menu, really looks like the Outer Worlds with 100% focused in on the NPC, and they didn't have subtitles and you couldn't skip it. Don't spacebar. And we get some hint at the bad guys moving along with the different factions and how they interact. Friendly, bad guys, or whatever you choose and decide, giving a lot of replayability if you're like me and played previous games, always going with different factions to see how the story played out. And then we get at the end what looks like the Halo meets Mass Effect ring, which I'm assuming are the artifacts and hints at what we're working towards and what we're doing, collecting, scavenging, and assembling these for some story element. Then we get a preview of the character creator, and what stuck out to me here is the Fallout Elder Scrolls type background, perks or traits, which influence how your character behaves, which for me, as a story replayability type thing, I always played different characters when they had different traits, especially in Mass Effect, to see how the story would play out differently, especially if the environment interacted differently with me based on those initial traits and perks. They do foreshadow that traits will come with advantages and disadvantages, similar to other RPGs, so huge replayability with your just base character decisions. Can't wait. And now we get to the skill system and what I'm really excited about. This looks much more fluid and simple to read and easy to understand than previous Bethesda games. Shows what you would expect. Ranking up and leveling combat and non-combat related perks that could advance your knowledge in science, maybe crafting, and of course gunplay. And then Todd Howard discusses how they're going to work.
You can unlock new skills as you level up, and then you rank those skills up by using them and completing challenges. And there's deep crafting systems.
So skill leveling will be similar to previous test games by using them, which is very interesting that it went back to that type of way. Then we get a little bit into the crafting, which I spent most of my time in Fallout 4 building settlements and defending them. And this looks like Outpost development is going to be core to your crafting and your gameplay. And I can't wait to go around picking up loot from planets just so I can build up a lot more settlements. The thing that blew me away was building your own outpost. This is what I love from previous games and what I was expecting from Mass Effect Andromeda, the roleplay elements. Going, exploring, crafting, harvesting the materials that you find on an actual planet, and kind of telling your own story organically in a single player game is exactly what I wanted from this. This, outside of everything else, was actually the biggest, most unique thing to this game, I think, and why you could explore basically indefinitely is because you're going to these planets over and over and collecting things, building things, and then unlocking stories, companions, and people to settle those outposts and defend them. Totally blew me away. And then they foreshadowed and talked about what Todd Howard seemed to be a really huge feature, and that's building your own spaceships. You can get crew members for these, the layout, the look, and of course the combat. So there will be space combat, and it shows that outside of a planet. I'm not a fan of space combat because I feel like 90% of the time I'm just turning rather than gunplay, but this is a really cool feature, and it looks at the physics when these things explode and blow up. The graphics, the sound effects look absolutely incredible. Little Star Citizen here maybe. During the closing of Starfield, they talk about exploring planets, which will have over 1,000 planets in 100 systems, and the UI looks very similar to Mass Effect. There's no indication here how you travel from one system to one system, so there might be some other extra mechanic or faster than light thing inside your ship that you're going to activate. And we got over 1,000 planets to explore, and a lot tighter combat, leveling with traits and perks that influence combat and non-combat related systems. We got robust companions crafting along with probably my favorite part, and that's building Outpost. This might be the biggest game ever in terms of size and scope, and let's hope the developers take their time and make sure it launches smoothly in 2023. Well, that's the video. Make sure you like and subscribe for more Starfield content, as this channel will be dedicated to guides and Starfield related news. Head over to starfieldguides.com where we have written and video guides as well as a wiki page once the game releases with all the details from the game: ships, mods, weapons, companions, you name it. Thanks for watching.